Was it a blast? Firestarter, which tells the story of this little girl who has the ability to start fire and her father who protects her from these bad people. Just got back from watching Firestarter, the newly rebooted version of it. It's playing in theaters and streaming on Peacock. And I gotta say, it wasn't all that bad. I do admit that I was not the biggest fan of the original, starring Drew Barrymore, which I believe came out in 1984. Or like the early 80s, I'll just say that. I wasn't really the biggest fan. I used to have that on Blu-ray from the good folks at Screen Factory. I watched it 3 times. I tried to get through it as best I could. I tried to change my own opinion about it each time. And I was going to do a review about it way back when, but I couldn't even get myself to do that. I know it was a Stephen King novel. I never read the novel either. So whenever I heard that they were coming out with a reboot, which was very recently, it's one of those movies that nobody seemed to have bothered doing a review about it. I've only seen one other review before I actually went and seen it. I don't know, by now maybe more has occurred. I hadn't checked, but not much reviews has occurred on it, and that's a bit of a red flag. But was this actually worth my time? I was going in this kind of blind because, yes, I've seen the original, but I wasn't too fond of it. So whenever I first heard about it, I was like, okay, whatever. And then, just something pushed me to see it. So here we are. Let's talk about Firestarter. To get to the positives of Firestarter, I will say, loved the score. Cody and John Carpenter did the score for this. And you can tell, if you know any of the old school horror films that's directed by John Carpenter himself, like The Thing, The Fog, Halloween, it has that very synthesized, I guess you could call it, sound to it. It's really unique. You don't really hear scores like that nowadays. Him and his son is pretty much a duo. And I guess ever since the Halloween movies from Blumhouse, since they did such a great job on those, Blumhouse was like, yeah, go nuts on Firestarter. We got this new reboot. It's called Firestarter. We want you to score it. And they did a really good job. You could tell it was a straight up John Carpenter score. It was pretty satisfying. Yeah. The girl that played the actual Firestarter that replaced Drew Barrymore, she wasn't bad either. I thought she did a little bit better. As I said, this movie did satisfy me. Did it satisfy me like with a blast? No, not really. But it did kind of hype it up just a little bit. And speaking of the little girl that played Firestarter in this, I forget what her character's name is, but there's a line in here where you see it in the trailer, so I'm not ruining anything. But she says a line that kind of made me giggle just a little bit. But it was meaning to be serious, but I thought it was pretty clever.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Zac Efron was great. I almost get pissed off at the guy because he has it all. He has the looks, he has the money, he has the fame. He's very talented. Basically plays the father of the girl that has all the powers. He's basically the protector. He gave it his all. We don't really see him in that much. He was big in the Neighbors movies. Also, he was good in that 17 Again, which I wouldn't see with my last girlfriend as a chick flick. I only go for those, but he was good in that regardless. But yeah, Zac Efron was pretty good in Firestarter in this film. And I gotta say, the story was a little more interesting. It was kind of the same as the original, but the tone and pacing, it was better. The way they went about it in this was pretty good. Now, I've mentioned the positives, and I'm doing this with no notes, so forgive me if my mind gets sidetracked, but as far as the negatives goes, I didn't quite particularly care for the main villain of this. She wasn't all that. I didn't really get that much out of her. She didn't really appear on screen that much, but there wasn't really nothing there. It just didn't do anything for me. She was boring. She was kind of lackluster. There's nothing there. And as far as the rewatch value goes, I don't really see myself watching it constantly. Just like the original, I don't see the rewatch value any different for this one. It's just one of those that I'll never really hold up high on a pedestal. And it's definitely not going to be one of those that's going to be like the best of 2022. But yeah, the rewatch value, this alone just never really interested me. But again, I do admit that the reboot does have certain advantages over the original. Like, I felt like the original was a lot dated, way before its time, and it just veered off a lot. Now with this one, I think it's shorter. I forget how long the original was. I think the original was a little longer. But this one, they cut out a lot, so I could see, like, for those of you who are actually fans of the original and of the novel, you might get a little pissed off. But for me, personally, with this new reboot, I did find it more enjoyable. But at the same time, I still don't see myself rewatching it constantly. It's just one of those that's never going to go in my collection. And it's just one of those that I'll may even visit once. Like maybe when it comes out on Redbox or Streams, or whichever the case. It's definitely not going in my collection. And if I were to watch it again, it'd be with a family member or a friend or whatever. But other than that, it is what it is. But again, I did find more enjoyment out of this than the original, so give it props for that. So if you're a fan of sci-fi horror and curious to see a more modernized vision of this property, you might be surprised. It's a happy accident. So Firestarter, what was your thoughts on it? Have you seen it yet? Were you a fan of the original? Do you prefer that one over the reboot, or did you find this more enjoyable like I did? Just like I hear. Leave your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thanks once again, folks, for clicking this video and taking the time and effort to do that. Like, subscribe, comment, and share as always, the big four. And I will see you next time in a fiery blaze. Peace.